LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I
filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though. I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the AdTechGod Pod, your window into the world of advertising technology and the people behind it. I'm your host, AdTechGod. Welcome to the AdTechGod Pod, where we speak to the female leaders at some of the largest agencies on the planet. With me today is Kate Scott-Dawkins. She's the global president of business intelligence at WPP Media. I'm a huge fan of Kate's. I'm actually familiar with her work. I've seen her speak. We've interacted quite a bit. She just doesn't know it yet. She worked previously at Essence. She has been at the WPP Media or Group M family for quite some time. So I'm very happy to have her with me today. Welcome to the pod, Kate.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, same here. Thank you. And thank you for accepting my invite. I love the perspective of an agency. And I think I love the perspective of intelligence and data at an agency even more. So thank you. Thank you for joining me.
That's my little happy place. My bubble is thinking about the future of the industry and what we can learn about it by analyzing as much data as humanly possible. Really.
It's amazing. Like WPP Media, WPP overall has been winning so many accounts lately. I feel like all I keep seeing across the board is new accounts that are coming on board. So you guys are obviously doing something right to see that type of growth. But before we kind of dig into the industry, I would love to hear about how you reached where you're at today, leading this group, and what this means for the agency itself.
Sure. Where to start? I left high school saying that I was going to go into international marketing one day. I don't know how many people have a sense of that early on. I still remember very, very darky going back a long time ago. I think you're West Coast based. You've been on the West Coast for a while, maybe, but there was a California Dairy Board commercial a long time ago and showed the moon and talked about how a long time ago people thought the moon was made of cheese. And then 1969, people went to the moon, discovered it was rock. They've never been back since. And it was humorous, right? It's funny and it tells a story and that's amazing that an ad can do that, right? It can convey that and you can remember it and be humorous and whatnot. So this is a very long way of saying I thought I wanted to do marketing, but took kind of a convoluted route there eventually. Did an undergrad in linguistics, very much pattern analysis, right? So similar to what I'm doing today. And then a short career in professional sport, or at least competitive sport. And then finally into the world of agencies. I've been doing that for many, many years now. I'm loving it and worked in Hong Kong for a short time, in London, and now back in San Francisco. So,
you worked at Essence for nearly 10 years, then Group M, which is now WPP, for quite some time. I don't see many people that stick around that long at companies. It's usually a 3, 4, 5 year cycle, and then they leave. I'd love to hear what kept you at WPP and what keeps you there now for such a long period of time?
It's a good question. I think I came in initially in a sort of corporate strategy role, thinking about Essence at the time was independent. We were scaling, right? Came in and they were, the first job was kind of like open an office in Singapore, go figure out this thing, which was great, right? And getting to analyze an industry and think about the agency role within media and advertising, how best to structure a company, where to grow, how to do it, how to develop people in that world. And I just kept getting really interesting work and building on that viewpoint across years, eventually moving into more of a thought leadership role within Essence, where we first ran our study on advertising in 2030, just looking really far out, right? Like, what do we think is going to happen in the next 10 years in media and advertising? How is it going to be impacted by new technology like AI and virtual reality? How is it going to be impacted by new consumer, products and services like micropayments? Well, that fizzled out, but getting to think about all these things in the future and what it meant for a company has been really exciting. And I think the nice thing about sticking around is you actually get to continue to shape those things and continue to see them get implemented and then continue to influence future direction of the company. And it's been really rewarding in that sense to stay and continue to drive that in different roles and at different levels. And now getting to bring more of that insight into very senior leadership at our clients and also across WPP.
It's funny because you are so ingrained in the intelligence and data aspect of the business, probably a division that may have been small during the, what I like to call the broadcast era, where, you run on TV across the nation or through, specific DMAs, a very different amount of data that you could utilize to target your audience better. How have you seen that change in your career? And maybe how is that different than working abroad and working on these types of products?
It's a good question. Because I deal less with, at least today, the advertising data, as it were, in terms of spots and dots and viewership and logs. I remember when GDPR came out doing a project where I'm like, oh my gosh, we're not going to have access to these DT log level data anymore. What are we going to do? But in that sense, yes, the amount of data that is produced and consumed in our world has only expanded. And certainly there's a big piece of WPP that it looks at that and that incorporates all of that into WPP Open and all the intelligence that we bring to our clients across a myriad of teams and touch points and all the rest of it. My team specifically spends a lot of time synthesizing and bringing together a few very specific external data points like financial results and government data on, say, consumer spending or, consumer savings rates, those kinds of things, retail sales, right? We look at those kinds of data points and then looking at them alongside what we can see internally, proprietary data around client spending and growth of various channels or partners. And so our role, I think, is to synthesize all of these things together and be able to draw the bigger picture from that and then crystallize it and explain it to others, to our clients particularly, and to the industry at large, make sense of all this and be able to tell a story around it.
So do you think a lot of it has to do with like the micro or macro economics, what the trends are, and then how you need to address those potential end users or consumers of a brand? I'm guessing that's pretty darn complex, Kate. Like that can't be easy to look at. There's so many moving parts at one time. Yeah,
I often joke that my job is to know everything about everything, right? Because every industry has to advertise. Everything that happens in the world, whether it's a drought in Ecuador or a flood in Pakistan, all of that impacts consumer spending and advertising around the world. And so because we have all of that as our sphere of interest, I'm constantly trying to pay attention and feed all of that in. And so it's exhausting, but also very rewarding. And certainly political news and data, economic, right, social, what's happening in the world around sentiment related to social media, for instance, is something that we're paying a lot of attention to. And then the technological, right? I think of us as basically building a big pest analysis, long-term, ongoing across those four key categories and understanding how each of them interact and influence advertising growth and advertisers as we go into the new era, right? And a lot has been developing. You have these increasing consolidation amongst the media owners, right? Where we have now the top 25 sellers of advertising accounting for We're at nearly 3/4 of the total industry by the end of this year. And, one of the aspects of how we got there, you have to look at political and regulatory environments across the US and Asia and Europe. And so all of it plays into what we're watching and how we're forecasting going forward.
Because those are all constantly changing and pretty dramatically changing. The sentiment can change quite a bit. Political temperament can change very quickly. We're seeing that now. We're seeing that on a global scale. I feel like every week there's something new. How quickly does that make you and the team react to be able to deliver that information to your clients? Say, hey, this is what's happening in this part of the world. This is how it may impact your brand. You should push, you should pull. Like, this is how you need to work moving forward. Are you guys doing that almost in like real time? How do you work with your clients on that?
Yeah, there's probably a couple of different levels of cadence that happen there, right? So the big forecasts happen twice a year. And we're inputting everything that has happened over the last 6 months, plus everything we expect to happen over the next 5 years. And that gets built into the forecast. And so big pieces of work that are ongoing, but you kind of have these punctuated moments of, okay, this is currently our expectation, right? On a daily basis, you are reacting to things. Right now we're in earnings season. We will be following, our list is insane, like more than 200 companies, right? The biggest sellers of advertising in the world, the biggest buyers of advertising in the world. What are they saying? How are they talking about the market? How are they talking about their consumers? And the learnings, the findings from that, the insights from that, we will be supplying internally into clients on at least a weekly basis. And then you have sort of POVs that come out when OpenAI announces they're testing ads, when Netflix announces they're going to buy the Warner Brothers studio and streaming business, right? You're reacting also on a very ad hoc basis for some of these things where clients want to know what we think about these events as WPP Media. And so that's another place where my team will bring our intelligence and big list and data set and all the things that we've been sitting on and researching for a long time and apply that into some of those POVs for clients as well.
Question for you, because this comes up on all the podcasts and we chatted about it prior, but like personalization, AI, speed to market, speed to your clients. How much of a role is that playing? WPP Media in particular has seemed to take on a very data first approach, probably more than other agencies out there. It seems to be working. As I mentioned, you're winning a ton of business, which is great. But how is AI playing a role in helping you do your job better and delivering better value to your clients?
I think my answer today is a lot different than my answer would have been 8 months ago, 8 months ago even, right? Because the technology is evolving so quickly that it is much more useful now than it was even a short time ago. Now, that said, one of the key things about large language models as they exist now are they are still mostly predictive engines, right? So they're going to sort of guess the next word in a sequence. And that can definitely help you if you have a starting point, right? We like to start from human generated, insightful thinking that says something that no one has said before, right? We want to be able to look at the marketplace and draw a new analogy or coin a new word or talk about a category that hasn't been defined well yet before and do that for the first time. That's actually our value add to the industry and to our clients. And so in that sense, we can't rely on large language models and AI because we want it to be net new to the world entirely, right? Where it is helpful is in, analyzing a bunch of, like I said, we track 200 something companies. So if we've missed a few of them and we need to get a deep dive on what they said in their transcripts, great, right? Summarization and helping us get through more data, crunch more data to be able to apply to insights. That's really useful. So that's kind of in the operational side of things. It is also changing where I spend most of my time thinking and analyzing and sitting down and talking with clients. And that's because it's just fundamentally transforming and set to continue to transform our entire industry. I would say, we're already more integrated than any other industry because things like machine learning have been built into these platforms like Performance Max and Advantage Plus for decades, right? And so we're well placed to take advantage of this moment. Again, the companies that are sort of now at the starting blocks of this AI era of advertising are some of these largest sellers of media. Alphabet and Meta and Amazon and ByteDance and Tencent and all these companies, right? And so I'm spending a lot of time right now looking at, for us as WPP and as an industry, what does that era look like? What's going to be really important in terms of the capabilities and the skill sets and the levels of transparency and control? And how do we talk to clients about that? How do we prepare them for that? And how do we talk to our partners about that? And how we view the future and what their plans are and roadmaps are and how those align or could align better, right? So impacting it on all sides, as I'm sure is the case for most people.
I feel like I look at 2 data points sometimes and I get overwhelmed. I couldn't imagine, I couldn't imagine looking at as much data as you look at, and data that's like consistently moving and changing for so many different reasons is pretty impressive, to be honest, Kate.
Well,
You're like, it's my job. I love it. It is what it is. I love data.
It's the most fun I've ever had at work. It's the most exhausting job I've ever had, but it's certainly the most fun.
I'm sure. What do you think are like some high level trends you're seeing for 2026? We're only really a month in. What are some high level trends that you could share with the listeners today in terms of trends that you're seeing from the data points that you collect from?
Few interesting things, I guess. I'll point to sort of some positive things and then a couple of things that I think are worth calling out as watch outs, maybe. I don't know how shifts coming to the industry.
Yeah, I'd love it.
I think what's super interesting is when we think about AI and chatbots as this new consumer service, right? And the potential for advertising to basically subsidize that the way it has subsidized a lot of other consumer services. I was playing around with some data from US government, like the LSBEA data on consumer spending and what that looked like in 1984, say, where you're paying for postage stamps, you were paying for long distance phone calls and your movie tickets and whatever else, right? And then looking at 2024 data, we actually spend in 2024 dollars, I think, more today on things like infrastructure, so your cell phone bill and your home broadband bill than we would have paid for infrastructure 40 years ago. We paid dramatically less for the services we enjoy, and we actually get more for that lower cost, right? So instead of sending a letter and it arriving in 3 days or paying for a long distance phone call, you now have things like Gmail, where you can send as many emails as you want and they arrive instantaneously. You get added services like photo storage and all of these things. And there's some rough back of the napkin math. You're paying like $2,000 less a year as a US consumer for the enjoyment of all these services, because the largest sellers of advertising are services companies. And so they have this, it's part of what makes them sticky. And that's been the trend that has, I think, underpinned a lot of the change that people have felt over the last couple of decades, right? AI services like chatbots are kind of in the next phase of that, right? Which I think is interesting. Now, that introduces a couple of interesting questions for maybe shifts in trajectory where we've seen some channels growing very, very rapidly in the last several years. Say retail media is one, or creators is another one, where I think people have talked a lot about disruption to search. I actually think commerce and creators are potentially at even greater risk from being disrupted by AI in the advertising world, because of the types of searches that are going to get probably AI treatment first, right? Like product recommendation searches. People may end up on a chatbot instead of a second, third tier retailer site viewing their on-site inventory. And then creators, if it's so easy to generate video and content, what's to say that, and this is already quite common for there to be a mix of AI generated and human creators and influencers or in markets like Asia, that we could see more of that here. And then the question is sort of who creates those? Where does that money go? Who benefits and all the rest of it? Sorry, I don't know if that was what you were looking for, but that's sort of where my head is.
I'm just thinking because like on the creator front, I've seen that. Like I think I've stumbled on plenty of accounts that are obviously AI generated images, videos, text or copy. There's no way around it. And the volume that they can create content at is, 100x what anyone else can do just because of the sheer use of technology. And there's really no limitations. There's no cap. It's really, what can you push? How fast can you push it? And many times the creative aspect is lost in that. I agree with you that I think that there is threat to the creator economy. And I hope that it's a short-lived threat until people realize that AI generated is simply that, AI generated, and authenticity has value to it. But it will be interesting to watch as that's utilized more and more in the creator economy, because I'm definitely seeing it. Like I know for sure videos, copy, memes are all AI generated, and it's pretty incredible how fast they do it.
But there's a lot that would have to happen to support that, right? You would have to know that it was AI generated probably as a person, right? And there's been enough, I think, done it in detail, but seen headlines around humans aren't always the best at gauging for themselves what is and isn't. So then you have to get to this point of industry level watermarks and disclosures. And there's the cat and mouse of, are the disclosures winning or the, those sort of producing content winning in terms of how people know. And then, whether there's incentive to limit that, right? Which is an open question as well. Whether we start seeing, again, we talk about the divergence in the US economy between the most affluent households spending representing like half of consumer spending and the other 90% of households representing roughly half of US spending. Whether you start to get into paid tiers for human only content or something, right? And you have this increasing divergence of who is spending attention or spending money on these various forms of content. So open question there as well.
So it's interesting because I picked up a pair of the Ray-Ban glasses, the Meta Ray-Ban ones, and they have an app called Meta AI, which is all basically AI generated content. I'm blanking on the ChatGPT version of it, Sora 2. And I tried. I played around with it for sure. I spent probably a solid week just creating absolutely absurd content. And it was fun to place friends' faces on it. But it fizzled out pretty fast because I think innately within me, when I'm watching that content, it's just AI. Like this doesn't mean much. But if it's a real creator, there's just a little bit more of a personal aspect to it where I know that there's effort put into this outside of just typing a prompt, although sometimes the prompts are really good. To me, I'm hoping that, maybe creating a separate economy for creators, the real ones and the non-real ones is probably the path, but it's an interesting world.
You're also looking at it today, right? And think about where text was a year ago versus today, and then take that and apply that. It's sort of exponential to video from today to a year from now. So we are in this just rapidly evolving world, and our industry, because of how important it is to the global economy right now, because of how, many of the world's largest companies by market cap exist in our industry, sell advertising, if not as their main source of revenue, then one of their sources of revenue. And because of what we've seen in the past around incentives and reward structures for new technologies and formats like social media, we have to be very invested in getting this right, I think.
So maybe we'll pivot a little bit now on the pod. I want to talk a little bit about you in particular, being a female in the space. You mentioned careergirls.org. I'd love to hear a little bit about that and why you're involved there and what that means for you and the people that are a part of that.
Yeah, it's a great organization that I found when I moved back to San Francisco from London, looking at basically how do we inspire more girls and women to get into particularly STEAM fields, right? So science, technology, arts, engineering, math. The founder, Linda Calhoun, is now a great friend. And it's at its simplest a way to close the imagination gap for girls. So we think about girls around the world, and they do have really their constituents are global, who might not know what a sound engineer does, or what a mechanical engineer does, or what a astrophysicist does, because they don't have those kinds of role models potentially in their immediate family, or they don't have access to those kind of people, or they haven't seen someone doing that job who looks like them. Career Girls is really built to erase those gaps. And so they have videos of role models. It's one of the main impacts of the organization. Videos of role models, women everywhere who are doing these jobs, talking about what it is, how they got into it, how they started, what a day looks like, what resilience looks like to them. There's a big piece of empowerment there too. And they've also been branching out into clubs. So bringing this content and this empowerment message to schools and girls as well. And it's just really rewarding to be involved in that and sort of make sure we get people representing all walks of life into these fields that are going to be very, very important, again, as we go forward for kind of setting the guardrails and the tone and how things like AI and media and culture and commerce and tech are going to work in the future. We want to have as broad a base of people working in those fields as possible.
I mean, I'm looking right now. Hope you don't mind. I'm browsing. So okay. Atlanta, Boston, Denver, Addis Ababa. You have San Francisco, Tokyo. Like this is like no joke. Like a total global presence, helping support girls in the space and who want to enter STEM industry. It's pretty incredible. So I'm thank you for sharing it. Yeah. Do you, I would say, like donate some of your time and effort towards it? Like, do you find that the conversations with the younger generation, like it helps guide them and get them more interested in things that maybe they weren't aware of?
Yeah, my main involvement has actually been as a board member. So I'm currently an advisory board member, but I was a non-exec board member. And that's super rewarding, being able to bring what I know about growth and company strategy into a nonprofit who maybe doesn't have access to all the same pools of talent, right? But being able to bring that in was great. So that's been my main involvement with the organization. And then, yeah, donating, going to the walks, the fundraisers, all that's great.
Kate, thank you for joining me. And thank you to WPP for having you here. I wish you the absolute best and looking forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the AdTechGod Pod, a podcast for the people, about the people. Stay connected with me for more insights, trends, and interviews in the realm of ad tech. Don't miss out on the latest updates, so follow me on X, Instagram, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't forget, ATG Slack community has insights, networking opportunities, and jobs. Keep the conversation going and stay at the forefront of ad tech innovation.